Hey guys, so today on Witch Please, I wanted to give some recommended reading materials because it is mid-July and the festival of the Lughnasah is just around the corner, so I wanted to recommend some of my favorite books on the subject. First, a disclaimer. With rare exception, I did not recommend any frou-frou fluffy books. The books I tend to recommend are for the serious students, the ones that really want to have a deep understanding and a grasp on what the festival really represented in antiquity. Now, you will notice an intentional omission on my behalf. I do not personally recommend nor endorse the work of Professor Ronald Hutton, and that is not without good cause. I have read every book he's written, and each time I read one of his books, I try and give him the benefit of the doubt. I keep hoping against hope that his books will get better, but I keep seeing and observing the exact same extreme methodological flaws that I have seen in his first book, The Pagan Religion of the Ancient British Isles, and that's just not cool. If you do read Professor Hutton's books, please be aware that they are agenda driven, that he is writing with an agenda. He never really states what that agenda is. Instead, if you read his books, more often than not, you're left with the impression that the case has been closed, that he has created the best argument for the questions at hand. Unfortunately, that's usually not the case. More often than not, he intentionally ignores evidence. He will cherry pick data that supports him while ignoring any data that disproves his views. Often he will lead his readers to jump to conclusions. He will engage in multiple logical fallacies. I have caught him totally cherry picking evidence and totally ignoring evidence that actually disproves his views within the same book that he happens to be citing. It was even in one of his more recent books, an anthology of articles that he had written called Witches, Druids, and King Arthur, in which Hutton even confesses that while he was writing his book, The Triumph of the Moon, he found and intentionally ignored evidence of modern pagan witchcraft's antiquity, and he just took it upon himself to ignore it. Why that confession didn't seem to make a larger impact on the pagan community at large, I don't know. I can only surmise that it's because many pagans have not read all of his books, just the one, Triumph of the Moon, and that's all they may have read by him, which is unfortunate because if you do read Hutton's books and you read his sources and you read other scholars on similar subjects, you get a very different impression. You get a very different idea or feel for the field that is being discussed, and it's quite different than Hutton will allow for, and even many of Hutton's academic pagan acolytes will really allow for. Hutton made the very bold claim in Triumph of the Moon that the field of folklore has completely discredited the view that folklore is in any sense traceable to paganism by any definition possible. And to bolster this argument, he cites two articles, neither of which, to my knowledge, really focuses on that question at all. If they do, it's only in very minor passing, and to my knowledge, no one has even written a study that tries to argue one way or another based upon how the evidence portrays it. There is one book that only discusses early folklore that is said to be ancient, but in fact it isn't. However, a lot of scholars really sort of misuse that study as though it were representative of all folklore in totality, when it's not. So, caveat emptor, buyer beware. That is my quick little addendum. So I will come back to you, and I will get to recommending this big old pile of books that I have sitting right next to me. So I will see you in just a minute. Oh, and I am planning on creating a shorter intro because some people have been complaining that my intro is way too long. So I will be shortening it up sometime in the future. Just be patient. Okay, hi YouTube, and so the first book that I wanted to recommend is one of my favorites. It is Celebrate the Earth by Laurie Cabot. She's getting up there in years, and her books will always hold a very dear place in my heart. Her book, Power of the Witch, was really sort of life-changing to me as a witch, and really the first two books really are really witchcraft-centered. The other books are totally academic. The next book is 8 Sabbaths for Witches by Janet Farrar. These books actually present two different styles of witchcraft. This is more liturgical, and this one is more BTW, British traditional witchcraft, which is fine. They are great companions to each other. There are two other books I have that I would like to recommend, but unfortunately I cannot find them. My library is a total mess right now, but they are, I think it's called The Sabbath or The Will of the Year by Mike Nichols. He is actually going to be writing the foreword to my own study of the Sabbaths, which is going to be an academic treatise called, what title did I give that book now? Oh, I'm so bad. I can't even think of the own title I give to the own book I'm writing. It's Whence the Witch's Sabbaths. So I can't wait until it's done. It's taking a long time because finding folklore from Europe is such a grueling process. It really is. Scholars, friends of mine who are scholars have told me that it's because there's just no money in translating it, and when you do find information about it, it's in piecemeal form, so it's extremely difficult to find folk customs from Western Europe, let alone Eastern Europe, where it's much more difficult. I've really not found anything in France yet. I would love to find seasonal folk customs from France, and I have really hit a wall as far as that's concerned, which really bums me out. Oh, and the other book I would totally recommend, written by a pagan, a dear friend of mine who is phenomenal. Her name is Anna Franklin, and her book is called Lughnasah. It is published by Lear Press, which is her own publishing company, and I highly recommend it. It is really the second edition of a book she wrote earlier for Llewellyn called Lammas. It's a great book. Totally recommend it. It's the bee's knees, She's just like me. She's really good at her research. and she has a great mind. This is a new book that came to me, and I was surprised at how inexpensive it was. Well, I actually got one of the last inexpensive copies I saw. The other copies were really expensive. And they came all the way from England, I think. It is Irish Folk Dramas by Alan Gailey. It's sort of a little known book on the subject. It was actually written by the same publisher as this one. This is one of my favorites. The Year in Ireland, Irish Calendar Customs by Kevin Danaher. And this book is one of my personal treasures because at the time when I found it at the half-price bookstore, I couldn't find a copy of it anywhere online for less than, say, $75. It was really expensive online, and I just happened to find it at the half-price bookstore. I was browsing through the folklore section, and I felt sort of an intuitive tug on me, and I just turned around, literally looked down at the bottom of the shelves behind me, where I've never actually looked at that section before, and there it was, staring me in the face for $5.98. And I took it up to the cash register, really nervous because I literally only had like $7 in my pocket because I knew the value of the book, but I was really worried that when I brought it up to the cashier, because they tend to know the value of the books they sell here, and I was worried that the cashier might take a second look at the book and say, okay, there's a problem here. We can't sell you the book for this price because it's been mislabeled. So when I was walking back out of the building to my car with the book in hand and the receipt, I felt like I had stolen something because, in a sense, I sort of did because I knew the value of the book and they did not. And it's a classic. It's wonderful. And the publisher is Mercier Press. Another new book is, who's the author? By Geoffrey Palmer and Noah Lloyd, is A Year of Festivals, A Guide to British Calendar Customs, published by Warren Books, I believe. And actually, I really love this. I opened it, and there is a bookplate on the inside with a unicorn. I love unicorns, and it's such a pretty image. But yeah, this is sort of a light. Oh, I think each festival is given maybe a few pages, most of them a paragraph, but it's really good. I recommend it. This next book is another recent treasure, and I hope to get every volume in the set, but it is source material from British folklore. It is British Calendar Customs, England, Volume 2, Fixed Festivals, January through May, and it was published by the Folklore Society in 1938. So I really hope to get every volume in this collection, because I believe there are 7 or 8 in the collection. But this is my first my first book from this set, and unfortunately these books are rather expensive, which is unfortunate because I really want my own bloody set. This other book is really interesting. It was published in 1941 by Harper Press. It's English Villages of the 13th Century by George Casper Homans, and that's Homans with an O, not humans, Homans. And it's really interesting. It goes into really interesting detail of 13th century village life and festivals as they relate to crops and the agrarian society that they are accustomed to. this is actually another recent book that came to me this year. I still don't know how it came to me, but it is British Folk Customs by Christina Hole. There's a story about this book. I had ordered it online through abebooks.com, and I literally I did not have enough money to pay for it on the card I was using. It was a gift card, and it said to me that the transaction did not go through. So I was like, okay, no biggie. I had ordered another book in its place. I think it was actually this book I ordered in its place. It wasn't very much. But this book still came to me in the mail from the seller. So how that managed to happen, I have no idea. I basically got a free book because I even checked my ABE account afterwards to see if it had perhaps gone through, and sure enough, it still showed that the transaction had not gone through. So that's a bit of a curiosity. I have no idea how that happened, but I'm glad I got the book. I really cherish it. I love all of Christina's books. It's really unfortunate that all of the folklorists that I like and that I respect and that I cite are either extremely elderly and retired, or they are dead or dying, which is unfortunate because they are the exact folklorists that I would love to peer review my own study once the Witches' Sabbath. So, because I really do trust their views when compared to other scholars on the subject who tend to have a very extremist and conservative view on the subject. They really like to mitigate the evidence as much as they can, so that you can't really draw the conclusions that you think should be drawn from the evidence when it's sort of screaming at you in the face. Another book I love this set of books. It's one of my favorites. One of my babies, my bound babies. It is excuse me, The Silver Bough, Volume 2, A Calendar of Scottish National Festivals, Candlemas to Harvest Home by F. Mary McNeill. I have all 4 volumes, and if you do not have all 4 volumes, you do not know what you are missing. Get the set of books; you will not be disappointed. Actually, this book in particular is from 1959, which is weird. They've just sort of slapped a really nice paper dust jacket on it, which is fine. But the other books are published hardback, with sort of the dust jacket being part of the hardback covering, which, I mean, they look really good. But it's just sort of strange to find one book that doesn't quite match the set. All right, this is another book that I bought. I really had no idea at the time that it does, in fact, have a chapter dealing with Celtic calendar customs. It is Cattle Lords and Clansmen: The Social Structure of Early Ireland by Nerys Patterson. And in fact, it's really only the second edition of this book that has that chapter in it. So if you are looking for a copy of this book, make sure it is the second edition. Otherwise, it won't have that chapter in it. Alright, so this next book is by one of my favorite scholars, and I befriended him for a while online. And we would even exchange ideas about the subject of Celtic folklore. So it really broke my heart when I had discovered that he died unexpectedly. It is Dehi O'Hagan, The Lore of Ireland, an encyclopedia of myth, legends, and romance. He is considered by many specialist scholars in the field of Celtic studies to be one of the leading experts in the field of Celtic mythology, above and beyond sort of the general historians that write on the subject, such as Professor Ron Ludden. So, if you're really interested in Celtic paganism, buy his books. His book, The Sacred Isle, is one of the best books on the subject of Celtic paganism in Ireland that you can get your hands on today. It's not very well known. It's seldom cited, less than it really should be, because it's really it's an amazingly thoughtful book. He is one of the leading scholars of the subject. So if Celtic paganism is your thing, get his book. His book, The Sacred Isle, is one of the best books out there on the subject, better than many of the other authors that are being recommended by pagans, such as what's her name? Miranda Green. His books are far better than hers. Her books are good. Don't misunderstand me; they're good, but his books are far superior in many, many, many ways. So we're getting close to the end of sort of my list of recommended books, and second to last is another favorite of mine. I also know the author, Professor M.L. West, and it is Indo-European Poetry and Myth. This book sort of puts a hefty nail in the coffin of those scholars that like to insist that no folklore by any definition can be traceable to ancient paganism, period. Those scholars that make that really bold assertion gotta read this book. If they don't, it's clear then how agenda driven they are to really maintaining that idea. It's really a phenomenal book if you've never read it. I highly recommend it. I bought it in 2007, I believe, when it came out from Oxford University. Yeah, in 2007, and it was very expensive. About $150, I think. Don't quote me, the price may have come down. I really haven't looked at the prices since then. It's expensive, but it's a good book. It's just amazing. I would love to read more books on Indo-European folklore. I really would. It really parallels another awesome book that I've read called The Gods of the Celts and the Indo-Europeans by a scholar named Garrett Olmsted, who wrote the principal study on the it has been such a long time since I've studied Celtic history and mythology that I'm just not I've just forgotten some things. The Caligny calendar, that's it. The Caligny calendar. I was just spacing on the name of that for a minute. But the last book and the most important book in this video when dealing with the subject of Lughnasah is Mayor McNeill's huge study, The Festival of Lughnasah. I was really happy to finally get a copy of this because I just happened to get a coupon from, I want to say abebooks.com, which isn't usually renowned for giving away coupons for buyers to use, and I got like I want to say 40% off this book, which was, if you've ever looked for a copy of this book, even used copies of this book are still really, really expensive. So I was really glad to get a coupon for a discount on this book at all, because this book actually was being sold used, even though it's basically brand new. It's really one of the best books on the subject. It has come under some criticism from Professor Hutton, but considering how agenda driven he is in general, you can pretty much dismiss a lot of what he says as just being, dismissive. My view is that Professor Hutton has really come to very conservative views because he really painted himself into a corner very early on in his career. And um, I know other scholars that hold similar views to mine, that they believe this is why he is adopting such even cynical and conservative views when he authors a new book. Because they also believe that he has really sort of painted himself into this corner very early on. Otherwise, they think that he would be coming out with much more liberal, if you will, conclusions than what he is. So, that is my recommendations for anyone that is really interested in getting at the meat, the heart, the bone marrow of this Sabbath that we call Lughnasah or Lammas. So, I hope you enjoyed. I hope I have given you some new books to go out and buy. Um, if you know me, I am a huge reader. I read a lot. I study a lot. I consider myself, in the words of the late great Margot Adler, I am a scholar without a degree, as many pagans are. It's only become very recently that we've sort of begun looking down on our fellow pagans in favor of those scholars who are actual academics, as though the views of the real scholars should outweigh those of us that have been studying it for 20 or 30 years, at a very serious level. I I don't think that we should be disregarded. I think that our views are just as well-meaning and well-founded. That even Ronald Hutton himself said that during the 1970s and before, many of the academic works that are still considered quite serious and well respected today were written by freelance scholars, and that um, we really need to start embracing those of us that write on that subject, even though there are certain scholars such as Caroline Tolley who believes that we need to have academia fed to us, that we don't really know what to do with it, and because we have this sort of cognitive dissonance, as she says. That's why we don't like the views of some scholars, because it sort of pops our cherished belief systems that for our own good we have to have this information spoon fed to us by those that really know what to do with it, and that's really very uh, that's really a very calloused and a very cynical way of looking at things, because it because she doesn't um, she seems to come to it from a more reactionary perspective, because that's really not why we don't like what scholars are saying. We don't like what scholars are saying for the most part because we have researched the source material, we have researched the secondary material, we have even gone above and beyond in many cases within the context of our research, and found that what scholars are feeding us is a whole lot of nonsense in certain regards. Not always, but sometimes. And it's that sometimes that really causes our ire to get irked. So she's really painting with a very broad brush in this regard, and it's really unfortunate because it makes her look foolish. So until tomorrow, I will bid you adieu, and until always, my brothers and sisters, keep calm and witch on. Just one more final recommendation. If you happen to have it, go out and watch The Wicker Man. It is a classic, my favorite movie, one of my top two favorite movies. The other one is Practical Magic. But even though it's about Beltane and Mayday, still give it a watch. It's a juicy goodie, far better than the Nicolas Cage portion that was remade a while back. That sort of has this quasi folklore feel to it that doesn't really explain anything. I mean, I've studied folklore for years, and I still have no idea what the hell is going on. And I've watched the remake a few times just to see if I could understand what was going on. I couldn't, so I say stick with the original. It's a classic. I have owned mine for many years. I think I've owned mine about the time that I heard that a remake was being made. I was just browsing through Best Buy one day, and I just happened to see it in a nice sturdy wood box, and I just picked it up, bought it, watched it, and I have never been happier. It is just an amazing movie. So get yourselves a copy. You will not be disappointed. And I am not being paid by Anchor Bay, so this is just my own personal thoughts on the subject. It's a classic for good reason. Go out and get it, watch it, have a sort of a pagan night out, watch the movie together. You'll love it. I bought it specifically for a spell I'm going to be doing with this candle and the goddess of Shun. But yeah, that has been my